Mr. Cousins, the Member of Parliament for South West Clarendon. Over the years, we have witnessed moments and outbursts from our politicians that have left us to wonder if they're in their right mind, or is it a case of just bad-mindedness, wretchedness, sloppy thinking, moments of madness? Because when you listen to what came out of their mouths, you have to wonder if they're really in their rightful minds. And this is another example of such an outburst. And we may discuss it and assess it, analyze it, but the reality is, it is just bad. It is shameful. It is backward. It is divisive. And it must not be countenanced. Democracies all over the world are in peril because the world is changing. New values are emerging. For example, what is truth? What is decent? Those values are being turned on their heads by some of our leaders, world leaders, including from countries that you would expect better. And this experiment called democracy is in jeopardy. And we here in Jamaica are not immune. Our democracy is fragile. Our people are losing confidence in our institutions, in our system of governance. They are losing confidence. The turnout at the last election was an historic low of 37%. What will it be in 2 years' time? And leaders, such as a Member of Parliament for South West Clarendon, have a particular duty and responsibility to be mindful of the environment that they operate in. Do we really want to divide our people? Divide them whether on the basis of color or economic status? I really don't think that is what Mr. Cousins would want. But that's what he attempted to do in that speech on Sunday. And I saw the video last night, and there were some veterans behind him listening to him. For example, Horace Daly, the former cabinet minister, long-time parliamentarian out of Northern Clarendon, was on the platform. They didn't see it prudent to say to him, brethren, fix up your argument, fix up your talk. Don't leave the platform unless you fix it up. I want to believe that Julian Robinson, one of our best prospects of this generation, it was at his constituency conference. Julian Robinson didn't see it fit to say to him, listen, Lothan, no. Fix it up. Huh? Can you imagine those words coming from Julian Robinson's mouth? I can't. I can't. And you know, I saw a piece of video last week of a function that Philip Paulwell, the PNP veteran, a video of his 25th anniversary as a parliamentarian representing East Kingston, and he had a function, yeah, to reflect and to observe the occasion of his 25th anniversary in Parliament. And one of the, I don't know if he was an MC or Heaney Blake, started to go down a road, you know, slinging dirt and mud and slurs. And next thing you saw was Mr. Paulwell rushing to the platform, pulling the microphone from Heaney Blake and saying, no, 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 not on this occasion, no, I don't want it. Reprimanding him right then and there. That was leadership. That was leadership. To have recognized it right in the moment and squash it in the moment. Heaney Blake is a man of physical substance. And in that moment, that substance melted away.
Let me tell you something. The GLP them, Robert Miller, me the one nothing you know. I tell you, say, for the day as labor right you now, go feel comfortable, big rap. So, nice, I chose say we have a deputy first lady. I chose say we have a deputy first lady. Round a one part of central Manchester. I chose say the first lady no day over East Rural. I chose 1 second me band, 1 second me play the final song. Where dare me tell the people and say, show you now see the MP from Central Manchester I walk out when the parliament open, show wife you walk out and mate it turn up. Me say she get vexed. You want hear where she call Juliet and tell her? You want hear where she tell her from Central Manchester to East Rural?
You call my phone, just say what's on your mind, okay? You're calling hang up, I'm not into this.
Where she tell her?
Let me tell you something.
Your man, he told me that he's tired of the shit you got. You took one hit and said my gift keeps him coming back.
I have invited my guests here. We're not going to disrespect anybody tonight. We want peace and love and harmony tonight. Peace and love and harmony. I don't want anybody to feel disrespected. Please, all right?
And I'm waiting to hear from the leader of the People's National Party, Mr. Mark Golding. Mr. Cousins is a member of his shadow cabinet. Is he in step with the comments articulated by Mr. Cousins? Are those comments in tandem with what he thinks of the private sector and poor black people not being able or should not be supporting the Jamaica Labour Party or the People's National Party or whichever party? Are those in tandem with the views and opinions of Mark Golding? And I'm not going to go down the road and point out that Mr. Golding is what you call a Jamaican white man whose parents are not originally from here. Mr. Golding needs to tell the country by his action whether those comments of a member of his shadow cabinet meet with his approval or not. If you haven't heard the comments after the break, you're going to hear them again. So what did Mr. Lothan Cousins said? What did he say? Here's what he said, as reported by Siobhan Campbell yesterday.
A trick. MP Cousins accused the Jamaica Broilers Group of attempting to hoodwink Jamaicans through its recent price reduction of chicken meat. This, he says, is an attempt to help the Jamaica Labour Party during the current cost of living crisis.
We have a cost of living crisis like never before. People are suffering. People are hungry. That is the reality of the Jamaica we live in today. You see the poultry company come and try to trick with. Them say they're going to decrease the cost of chicken by $12. But you know the thing is that every time they increase the cost for chicken, it increases by a percentage figure. So why are you going to come now and decrease it by a dollar figure? The last time it was increased, it was 10%. When you look at the $12 decrease now, it is 1.4%. So it's another tricky trick. It's another way of trying to propping up the government.
Cousins also says Jamaican youth were fleeing the country because of the difficulties being faced under the JLP government. Difficulties he claims would not be as harsh under any prior PNP administration. He also went on to collectively slam the private sector for what he calls its bias against the PNP. The first-term MP says this bias stems from their fear of the Jamaican people and by extension his party.
I have to understand that the private sector will always support the government that is going to support them. And they will never support the People's National Party the way they have never supported us that way. And they'll never support us that way because we are the party for the people. When the PNP wins, you, the people, are in power. And that is what they are afraid of. When you have the power, they are afraid. Because the government that has the power will ensure that they rule for you. If the government is the government for the minority, which is the private sector group, who you think they're going to vote support? Who you think their policies are going to be geared towards? Certainly not you, the people who support us.
Cousins did not stop there. He says he cannot understand how any Jamaican of color could find it in themselves to support the Jamaica Labour Party.
And so a friend of mine once said that the only person who's a Labourite, a black person who's a Labourite, must be a confused PNP. And I support that because I cannot see how poor black people can support a party like the Jamaica Labour Party. That is not the party for us. The PNP is the party of the people. The PNP is the party for the people. And the PNP is always going to be the party that is going to be here for you, to support you, to ensure that you and your children have a good opportunity at achieving in this world.
Cousins was guest speaker in the South East St. Andrew constituency of fellow MP Julian Robinson.
Well, the private sector leaders, we spoke with 3 of them yesterday. All 3 of them came out against what Mr. Cousins said, including the president of the private sector organization of Jamaica, Keith Duncan. And, you know, reflecting on what Mr. Cousins said in that clip, in that moment, the private sector organization of Jamaica, for those of us who don't know, let me give you a little history. The private sector organization of Jamaica was established in 1975, 47 years ago, during the height of the ideological struggle in Jamaica. 1975. When Michael Manley and the PNP had just declared a year before democratic socialism, and their intent was to take over the commanding heights of the Jamaican economy. And that triggered a deepening of the ideological struggle here in Jamaica between democratic socialism or socialism and communism on one hand and capitalism on the other. This was in the context of the Cold War in the global village. The Cold War between what was the Soviet Union, the USSR, Cuba on one hand, and free market capitalism as practiced in the Western world, mainly the US, UK, Canada. We got caught in that ideological war. We were proxies in that war. The pitched battles, the political gunmanship, the political violence, where none of them can say they were innocent. They will try to say today they were responding because they were under attack. But the fact is, we were proxies in that violent, deadly political struggle to save, some will say, the soul of Jamaica. Because if Manley and the PNP were to have won, freedom as we know it and the market economy would not be here today. And that will take another 10 hours to debate and to argue. But the point I want to make, where Cousins' comments are concerned about the private sector, when he slammed the entire private sector, and how time, if you live long enough, you see so many things. That PSOJ that was established in 1975, its first president was Carlton Alexander, the then titan of the private sector in Jamaica. Carlton Alexander was the head of Grace Kennedy Group. Very decent man, entrepreneur, philanthropist, good corporate citizen, and they made him president, the first president of the PSOJ, and they were established to be a check on what was the push towards democratic socialism in 1975. D.K. Duncan, who was in the top echelons of the PNP then, with Michael Manley and the PNP leadership at the time, including Beverly Manley, who we had here 2 nights ago, were pitched against the PSOJ in that political war. Fast forward to 47 years later, and what Cousins says, you know who now leads the private sector organization of Jamaica? D.K. Duncan's son, Keith Duncan. This is the man who leads the PSOJ and who, according to Cousins, are dead set against the PNP and the people of Jamaica. The same Keith Duncan who has brought to the leadership of the PSOJ not a recognition of what is needed to deal with the economy of Jamaica, but he's about to implement Project Star, an initiative that is speaking to the degradation in so many communities across Jamaica. Degradation and deterioration, the byproducts of the kind of divisive political rhetoric that Cousins is now spouting spewing from the political platform out of his ignorance. Keith Duncan, as president of the PSOJ, the son of Dr. D.K. Duncan, who was the revolutionary socialist. Time. Cousins need to go learn his political history. And I said it and I'll say it again. One of the reasons why the People's National Party is no longer attractive to a lot of people in this country, they have failed to recognize that the country is changing. How we think about our country and our prospects has changed, continues to change. And thirdly, unlike the PNP that I was attracted to as a teenage boy, that inspired me because of its not only goals and principles and policies, but because of the intellectual rigor that was brought to public policy. The public policy arena in the country. The Labour Party was no match for the intellectual heavyweights in the PNP. Today, the PNP is bereft of that. It is now a very intellectually lazy organization. That's what it has been reduced to, a rump when it comes to policy making and articulation of policy issues, given the social dynamics, the economic dynamics at play. It is no longer a thinking party. It shoots in the dark for what it thinks is popular. Keith Duncan had to say about what Mr. Cousins said. Here's it.
These comments are regrettable, and secondly, and they're divisive, and I would say private sector groupings have always worked with any administration to advance our country. Advance, as we have our mantra in the PSOJ, from advocacy to action for inclusive and equitable growth. And our actual focus is human capital development, as evidenced by many of our programs over the last 3 to 4 years. And secondly, and programs over the years that we have collaborated with any administration in power, whether it be PNP or GLP, we have worked constructively to achieve the national imperatives or objectives.
That's Keith Duncan. And the president of the Manufacturers and Exporters Association, John Mahfood, said this type of politics we heard from Cousins has no place in modern Jamaica.
As a member of parliament, I expect better. I expect that he would respect the people that he's talking to and speak honestly and with, and actually speak about facts rather than trying to rile up people. I think these are the old-time politicians. This is how they used to operate. Instead of speaking intellectually, instead of speaking and respecting the people you're talking to, you're making comments that are emotional and cause divisiveness, as Keith said.
That's John Mahfood. And the president of the MSME Alliance, Donovan Wignall, says this is what the country needs to move away from. And he encouraged Cousins to take some lessons from his forebears in how to address the Jamaican people.
Mr. Cousins probably need to listen to some Michael Manley speeches, one of the founders of his party, one of the
greater leaders of his party, where when he speaks on issues. Attack the issues. Stop trying to divide the people. That's the old-time type of, as John said a while ago, gutter politics. I don't think we need to go there, We have equal amount of PNP business people as there is JLP business people. I mean, there are black business people in Jamaica. There are business people across the full spectrum of races in Jamaica. And I think equally represented on either side.
That was Donovan Wignall, the president of the Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Alliance.